You need to hear about this. Love for an avoidant isn't what makes them happy. Now, don't get me wrong. An avoidant still wants love, commitment, and intimacy. It's just that their programming sort of prevents them from letting anyone close. So what you have is they end up coming up with all these different deactivation strategies. Longing for an ex, flirting with other people, refusing to commit. What unfolds is this endless cycle where they're jumping from relationship to relationship, essentially constantly searching for the one, but it's a trick. Subconsciously, an avoidant is happiest when they... Why do avoidants push love away? Well, I think we need to start with the paradox that lies at the heart of every single avoidant. There's this common belief out there that avoidance should be avoided at all costs. Or, to date one, you need to be an avoidant yourself. Or this one that suggests the only way to get an avoidant to commit is if their girlfriend gets pregnant. See, I do read the comments. But you know what's funny? Well, I'm 99% sure that last comment there was a joke. I think it really hints at the biggest misconception that people have about the avoidant attachment style. Now, most people view avoidance as inherently bad because of their inability to commit, or the simple fact that they're kind of always sabotaging relationships. But the reality is that within every single avoidant, an uncomfortable war is brewing. They want commitment, love, and intimacy. They do want those things. It's just that their programming is sort of preventing them from having it. It prevents them from letting anyone close. So what ultimately unfolds is this endless cycle where they enter a new relationship excited about the future, but as soon as their core wound gets triggered, as soon as their need for independence starts taking over, they sabotage the relationship. But I suppose the real question is why? Why are they like this? What is the psychology going on behind why they're sabotaging and preventing themselves from having love? Well, in my opinion, there are two layers that ultimately shape every avoidant. You have the very first layer, which is all about control. Now, individuals with an avoidant attachment style often fear intimacy due to their reliance on self-regulation as opposed to co-regulation. Basically, this means that they prefer to manage their emotions independently rather than seeking support from others. So instead of turning to people for emotional processing and comfort, they engage in all sorts of routines and activities that allow them to alter their mood without discussing their feelings with someone else. Now, this approach is a key characteristic of their attachment style, where they maintain emotional stability through controlled, solitary means rather than through shared emotional experiences. And it's this self-regulation strategy that is often most misunderstood. It's not that avoidant individuals are consciously choosing to not seek support. Rather, they've learned over time not to rely on others for emotional regulation. All right, so think of it like this. Every avoidant's life is structured around all sorts of routines and plans that are meant to provide them a sense of control and stability. For example, an individual might follow some sort of strict morning routine of exercise, meditation, maybe a healthy breakfast to maintain sort of this controlled environment. And anything that interrupts the routine, anything that sets off the norm, has the potential of triggering their core wound and causing them to essentially sabotage their relationships. So let's imagine this. Imagine that you have an avoidant with a very strict morning routine, the one I just mentioned. So they wake up, then they exercise, then they meditate, then they have a healthy breakfast. Now let's screw it up and watch what happens. All right, so let's say the avoidant and you have moved in together, and that avoidant was nice enough to let your kind, very elderly dog, Sparky, live with you. Problem is, Sparky's old. He's got lots of problems. So the avoidant wakes up, they're about to start exercising when you come rushing in and say that Sparky needs to go to the veterinarian immediately. All of a sudden, the whole morning routine is up in flames for that avoidant. Poor Sparky. But essentially what this does is it triggers the avoidant. They're losing control. They're losing their independence. What you need to understand is that these routines are crucial for an avoidant's emotional stability and allows them to anticipate and manage their feelings throughout the day. This structured approach to emotional regulation is a fundamental aspect of how they navigate their emotional world. So that's That's one layer of how avoidants operate. The second one is even deeper and more unconscious. So the second layer is all about childhood wounds. So from a young age, typically under 2 years old, people who have an avoidant attachment style often experience rejection of their emotional needs from their caregivers. And now this can manifest in a lot of different ways. A parent may dismiss a child's tears with remarks like, "Boys don't cry, man up." Or more subtly, by not responding adequately to the child's emotional expressions of sadness or need. Yet here's where it gets weird. A parent with an avoidant attachment style will often praise their child when they do something good, but they'll withdraw or try to change the child's mood during vulnerable moments. Now, this avoidance stems from their own discomfort with their own vulnerable emotions, leading them to reject similar emotions within their child. Here's the result. The child basically learns to associate vulnerability and emotional needs with negative responses like disgust. This response basically becomes this unconscious part of their psyche, and it leads them to feel self-disgust whenever they experience their own vulnerabilities. They're essentially conditioned to believe that showing vulnerability will lead to rejection or disgust, and it's a belief that deeply influences their emotional interactions and attachment style in adulthood. In their book Attached, Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller talk about the avoidant individual's preference for something called a deactivation strategy. Now, what the heck is a deactivation strategy? Well, let's pull straight from the book. A deactivation strategy is any behavior or thought that is used to squelch intimacy. In other words, deactivation strategies are the specific tools that an avoidant will use to sabotage love. And there are quite a lot of them. They can range from a reluctance to commit, focusing on your imperfections, longing for an ex, flirting with others, conditional love. Basically, they'll express love conditionally or may not say "I love you." Withdrawing during good times, seeking relationships with impossible futures, and avoiding physical closeness. Honestly, there's probably a lot more deactivation strategy out there, but that list should give you the gist of what we're going for here. But there's one thing that almost no one in the YouTube attachment video making space talks about. And as it turns out, someone in my last attachment video called me out for it. They said specifically, as an avoidant, what is the overall message of this video? Will it ever be possible for me to heal? And I think most people don't think it's possible. Once again, a simple look at the harshest comment on my last avoidant-based YouTube video kind of proves that. But I do believe that an avoidant who self-sabotages a relationship can eventually be secure. Back in 2021, I thought it might be a good idea to have a real therapist take a look at some of my content and kind of give it a content audit. Specifically, I wanted someone to look at my research on the no contact rule and give me their thoughts. That's when I found Tara Spears, a marriage and family therapist, and she was nothing short of amazing. Not only did she do a thorough job of critiquing this massive article, but she gave some really great constructive criticism. All right, so take a look at this small excerpt of an email that she sent me that was kind of this constructive criticism. There are two big things that I learned from Tara's email. Number one is where she says one does not change their attachment style on their own. If you look closely, she says that attachment styles are formed in relationships, maintained in relationships, and reformed in relationships. And this is largely a true statement. Attachment theory at its core suggests that attachment styles are initially formed in early relationships with primary caregivers, typically in childhood. This relationship influences how individuals approach relationships throughout their lives. However, it's also recognized that attachment styles can evolve and be reshaped through significant relational experiences in adulthood. And once again, the primary keyword there is relationships. New, healthy relationship experience can contribute to a shift toward a more secure attachment style. So here's my thought. Most avoidants prefer to be lone wolves. It's the whole independence thing. The reason they find it usually so difficult to change is because if it's true that attachment styles require other people to help you be more secure, then an avoidant's preference for being alone and independent literally causes them to push other relationships away. So basically, there's no opportunity for any meaningful attachment style work to be done for an avoidant because they're never in relationships long enough for that to happen. But like I said, there were two big lessons from Tara's email. That was the first one. Here's the second one. It's in this statement right here. She says, so the discussion here is what other relationships does the person have that he or she can invest in during this time to continue feeling attached, loved, and grounded. Now, one of the things that my team and I have gleaned from studying attachment styles over the past 5 years is basically the most common pairing that we see. The most common pairing we see is an avoidant attachment in a relationship with an anxious attachment. And you can see that borne out by our polls. Take a look at this one. This is a poll where 87% of our clients said they believe that their exes are avoidant. Here's another poll. This is one where 47% of our clients said that they believe that they are anxious. So what you have here are two very insecure attachment styles. The problem really is that this relationship pairing is almost always doomed to fail, or they'll just be perpetually unhappy with one another. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that neither attachment style really understands what the other one needs. For example, someone with an anxious attachment style is going to constantly need reassurance, whereas someone with an avoidant attachment style is going to constantly need space. So let's play devil's advocate here. We know that other relationships are essential, specifically as it relates to you becoming more secure. And there's this really interesting gravity element at play. So let's say you take someone with an avoidant attachment style and pair them with the ideal relationship, someone with a secure attachment style. This constant battle begins to take place on the attachment level. Either the secure person rubs off on the avoidant person by giving that avoidant person space when they need space and showing them through action how a secure, loving relationship is supposed to function, or the avoidant person rubs off on the secure person, and the secure person becomes more anxious or avoidant themselves. Going back to Tara's email, what other relationships do you have that you can invest in during this time to continue feeling attached, loved, and grounded? Because honestly, those are the people worth investing in. And those also happen to be the relationships that have the best chance of making you more secure.